Thank you all, that's better. Thank you all for coming out today to discuss some of the most important issues facing not only our country, but the entire world. That's a little disoriented looking at myself over there. That's kind of freaky, all right. Let me thank Jackie Spicer, and let me thank Jorge Fabian Trejo and Paloma Marcos for their remarks. I want to talk about climate change, but I want to talk about more than climate change. I want to begin by quoting Nelson Mandela, who, as you know, was one of the great international leaders of the last century. And what Mandela said, and I quote, "It always seems impossible until it is done." What does that mean?
Gotta do it!
You gotta do it, but what else does it mean? Who wants to help me on that? Raise your hand. That's right, all right. In other words, there is an establishment out there, an economic establishment, a political establishment, that wants you to think small, that wants you to believe that nothing big can really happen to transform our country or the world. And if you believe that, if you believe that you are powerless, and you are powerless, and you are powerless, you know what? Nothing will happen. And that is why so many people in our country don't vote, they don't follow what's going on, they don't believe there can be any change. And what this campaign is about, which makes it unique, a lot of good candidates out there, but what makes our campaign unique is we are asking you to think big, not small. We're asking you to think about where this country should be going and what are the obstacles that are in front of us. That's what this campaign is about. And this campaign is also unique in saying, you all know the message of our campaign is us, not me. What does that mean?
It's about all of us.
Good, all right. For a start, it has a worldview which is very different from Trump's vision of what human life is about. All right? What does Trump believe? Trump, when he was a businessman, that's right. Trump, when he was a businessman, was sued thousands of times because his word means nothing. He signs a contract, he breaks it, he's a liar, he's a cheat. And all he wants to do, and it's not just Trump, there's a bunch of people out there. They step on other people, they make billions, and then they go to the Congress and they say, oh, give me a tax break. I'm only worth $38 billion. How can I survive? I need a massive tax break. Oh, by the way, I'm worried about the deficit. So you gotta cut Social Security, Medicare, education. So that is a mentality that is out there. That's what the Trump world is. Step on everybody, lie, cheat, make as much money as you can. What we believe, our worldview is very different. Our worldview is that to be fully human, we have got to be caring about other people. We cannot close our eyes to the pain that is out there. We become less human when we ignore the suffering of other people. And that our vision is that my family has got to worry about your family, and your family has got to worry about my family. Essentially, as human beings, we are in this thing of life together. And the second point of our message, of us, not me, is something you don't see on television and you never will. The corporate media does not talk about it. And I've been to a zillion debates, that question will never be asked. And that is where real power lies in this country. So when I talk about creating an unprecedented grassroots movement, it's not just to elect me president, is that I understand that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, no matter how well-intentioned he or she may be, can do it alone. Why is that? The answer is that you have incredible power and money resting in Wall Street. You got 6 banks that have assets of over half of the GDP of America, $10 trillion, controlled by 6 financial institutions. You got an insurance industry which is incredibly powerful. They and the drug companies last year made $100 billion in profit. And they will be running advertisements up the kazoo here in Nevada, telling you how terrible Medicare for all is, how wonderful and compassionate the pharmaceutical industry is. I know, but they will be spending a fortune saying that. You got the fossil fuel industry, and we'll talk about that in a moment. A fossil fuel industry which is making billions in profit, doing what? Producing a product which is destroying the planet. All right. So you got a prison industrial complex making millions by locking up fellow Americans. You got a military industrial complex in which we spend $750 billion a year on, more than the top 10 nations combined. They like war. You make a lot of money selling arms all over the world. So when I talk about bringing people together to transform this country, I can't do it alone. All right, you don't got me, I got you, we're in this together. This campaign is not just about winning the election. We've got to do that. I got to win here in Nevada, and with your help, we can do that. It is about winning the Democratic nomination and defeating the most dangerous president in the history of this country. But it is also about transforming the country. Transforming the country and telling the corporate elite that we will end their greed and corruption, and that we will create a government and an economy that work for all of us and not just the 1%. So that's what this campaign is about. So what does that mean? What does it mean thinking big and not small? What it means is that if you work 40 hours a week in the United States of America, you should not be living in poverty. You can't make it on $9 an hour or $10 an hour, am I right? So you got corporations out there pay their CEOs 300 times what their workers make. What we are going to do is something very simple. Nobody in America who works 40 hours a week will live in poverty, because we're going to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. And we're going to create a system in which women get paid equal pay for equal work. And we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions. And we're going to change the priorities of our country and rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, including affordable housing. And we just outlined the program right here this morning in Las Vegas. A program which will create millions of jobs, ending homelessness in America, and ending the absurdity of about a quarter of our people paying 50% of their income on housing. That's crazy. But it's not just the economy, it is education. All right? What do we mean by that? Do we got any psychologists here or any majors in psychology? Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm putting you on the spot now. And all these TV cameras are right on you. Is it fair to say that the most important years of human intellectual and emotional development are 0 through 4? Okay. There you go. She confirms it. I'm right. Yeah, most psychologists would agree that that's not hard. And yet, in America, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And it is especially outrageous for minority communities, African American and Latino. Okay? We're going to end that. We're going to change the priorities of America. I get tired of politicians who tell you how much they love America. Well, if you love America, you love the children of America. Which means that we will have, and this is thinking big, but if this psychologist is right, and she most certainly is, that 0 through 4 are the most important years of intellectual and emotional development, we need a first-class pre-K child care program in America that is affordable to the working families of this country. We're going to invest heavily in public education, especially in Title I schools. And we are going to change our value system so that people understand that there's nothing more important than education and educators. As a nation, we pay football players and basketball players tens of millions of dollars a year to entertain us. Well, you know what? If we can do that, we can pay teachers in this country at least $60,000 a year. And I hope that many of you will be looking to becoming teachers, thinking about becoming teachers. We desperately need good teachers in America. And then it's not just child care and it's not just K through 12. In my view, we have to rethink what free public education means in America. And it means that in a competitive global economy where most of the new jobs out there require higher education, we must make public colleges and universities tuition free. And we must increase Pell Grants and work-study programs so that this is not a radical idea. Anybody know how much it costs to go to college in Germany? All right, because they understand that investing in their young people is an investment for the future of this country. So if they can do that in Germany and in Scandinavia, we can do it too. And the other thing that we can do is at a time, just out of curiosity, let me ask you a question. How many of you are going to be dealing or are dealing with student debt right now?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Too much.
Anybody want to tell me what the student debt is?
110,000.
Come on up here. I know, I don't mean to embarrass you. Come on up here. Tell them what you just told me.
110,000.
110,000.
Graduate? Are you in graduate school?
I have an undergrad in psychology and a master's in social work.
Do you want to be a social worker?
I am a licensed social worker.
So here is a young lady who is doing the right thing. God knows we need incredibly more social workers than we have in this country right now. That's what she's did. Because she wants to do the right thing and help her fellow brothers and sisters. She is now $110,000 in debt. That is insane. That is wrong, and that is why I intend to cancel all student debt in America. Now, I have heard from folks, you think 110,000, that is an enormous amount, but I have heard from people who went to medical school. Any people here from medical school? How much do you know people who have debts of $300,000? $400,000, okay? Dental school, same thing. You should not have to go deeply into debt and postpone getting married or having kids or buying a house or even buying a car. For what crime did people commit? Commit any crimes? Last I heard, getting an education was not quite a crime. It's the right thing to do. So we're going to change the value system around in this country. 11 years ago, against my vote, the United States Congress bailed out the crooks, and I use that word advisedly, on Wall Street. Gave them trillions of dollars in loans. If we could bail out the crooks on Wall Street who nearly destroyed this economy, if we can give over $1 trillion in tax breaks under Trump to the 1% and large profitable corporations, such that companies like Amazon, owned by the wealthiest guy in America, didn't pay a nickel in federal taxes, I think we could cancel your student debt. This is not a radical idea. We're going to pay for it by imposing a rather modest tax on Wall Street speculation. And then there's another issue that I want to say a word on. And that is, again, I ask you not even to think big, but just turn off the damn TV and just look at what's going on around the world. In every major country except the United States, healthcare is considered a human right, not a privilege. We are the exception to the rule. We spend twice as much per person on healthcare as do the people of any other nation. And last year, the healthcare industry, the insurance companies and the drug companies made $100 billion in profit. So let me be very clear. When we are in the White House, the function of a rational healthcare system will not be to make huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. It will be to provide quality care to every man, woman, and child in this country as a human right. This is not a radical idea. I've been accused of being so radical. I live in Burlington, Vermont. Love you all to come up and visit me sometime. 50 miles away from me is the Canadian border. We got at least one Canadian here. All right. Does anybody know how much you have to pay out of your pocket if you have a heart transplant in Canada and you spend a month in the hospital? How much is it? Zero. You go to any doctor you want. You go to any hospital that you want to go to. That is called healthcare in a humane way in a democratic, civilized society. Now, right now, we have 87 million people who are uninsured or underinsured, high deductibles, high copayments. Under Medicare for All, we eliminate all premiums gone, all copayments gone, all out-of-pocket expenses gone. And because we are prepared to take on the greed, corruption, and price fixing of the drug companies, nobody in America under Medicare for All will pay more than $200 for their prescription drugs. Now we're going to pass this, but I want you to know where the opposition is coming from, who's going to be paying for the ads that you're going to see on TV here in Nevada. And that is the drug companies and the insurance companies. They like the status quo. Business is really great for them. But we are going to take them on and do what every other major country on earth does. Make sure that all of you can go to the doctor you want, the hospital you want, without taking out your wallet or your credit card. Donald Trump, our self-described genius. I mean, ask him, he will tell you. He is a genius and a modest man as well. Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. I think Donald Trump is a hoax. I think that his attitude on climate change, in which, by the way, he is not only turning his back on science, which is bad enough, but he is initiating many, many policies which make a bad situation worse. So, Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax and is making us more dependent on fossil fuel. I happen to disagree. I think it might be a good idea for us to listen to the scientists and not to Donald Trump. I know it's a radical thought that we have a president who believes in science, but what the heck? And what do the scientists tell us? The scientists are telling us not only that climate change is real, not only that it is caused by human activity, but that it is already causing devastating problems in our country and all over the world. And this is what is even more frightening. What they tell us is that we have fewer than 12 years, that's no time at all, fewer than 12 years to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy, or else there will be irreparable damage done to this planet which can never be repaired. The bottom line here is, in my view, that we have a moral responsibility to our children, to our grandchildren, and to future generations to make certain that we do everything humanly possible to leave them a planet which is healthy and is habitable. What happens if we don't? What happens if we listen to Trump and the fossil fuel industry? What will happen is that we will see more and more years of warmer and warmer temperatures. We will see more drought, which you are experiencing in Nevada and in California and in many parts of the world. We will see more flooding. We will see more extreme weather disturbances And I want you just to think, I'm not talking about the whole world right now. Just think about what we have seen with our own eyes in recent years. We have seen the devastation done to Puerto Rico. We have just seen last week the incredible devastation done to the Bahamas. We have seen the devastation done to New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina. We've seen Hurricane Sandy cause tremendous damage in New Jersey. We are seeing all over the world unprecedented heat waves. And what we are seeing is, as a result of climate change, people unable to grow the crops that they need to eat, and therefore being forced to migrate from one community to another, one country to another, which results in a great threat of war, because when people migrate, that creates global pressure. In fact, just last year, 2018 alone, 840,000 people in Guatemala, already a very poor country, experienced extreme food shortages because of drought-related crop failures, forcing their families to choose between starvation and migration. According to a recent report, half a billion people throughout the world already live in places that are turning into a desert, where the soil is being lost up to 100 times faster than it is forming. If we do nothing, the CIA and other intelligence agencies have warned that the effect of heat waves, droughts, and floods substantially increases the risk of war, social unrest, and cross-border tensions. This June and July, just the last few months, were the warmest months in history. In fact, the last 5 years were the warmest on record. In terms of rising sea levels, what the scientists have told us is that if we do nothing, coastal cities like Miami will find themselves significantly underwater by the year 2045. In terms of heat waves, the extreme heat wave just in July caused 400 people to die in the Netherlands, caused more than 18,000 hospitalizations in Japan, and 169 million people in America were put on an extreme heat alert. This is what is going on now. It will only get worse in the future. In terms of extreme weather disturbances, in May, the Washington Post reported that half of America looked like Tornado Alley. Oklahoma, Missouri, and Iowa experienced record rainfalls and severe floods. Now, I have, as some of you know, introduced the most comprehensive climate change legislation ever introduced by any presidential candidate, and I suspect by any candidate for national office. And I have been criticized by many for saying that it is too expensive. And in fact, it is very expensive. It costs $16.3 trillion. That's a lot of money over a 10-year period. And we pay for that in a variety of ways. Among other things, we eliminate all of the subsidies and tax breaks that the fossil fuel industry gets. But here is the main point that I want you all to think about. How much is too much when we are trying to save this planet? How do you save money when the future of the planet is at stake? So our comprehensive plan essentially moves this country in a very rapid fashion away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies like wind and solar. And by the way, this state of Nevada, which is maybe overly blessed with solar, should be a leader in this country in producing solar energy. You know, when you talk about the damage done, sometimes it gets a little personal. I was in Paradise, California a month ago. Anyone remember what happened in Paradise? It was unbelievable. It wasn't just the fire. This is a town of 26,000 people, which is almost wiped out by a horrible, horrible fire that killed 86 people, destroyed 18,000 buildings, resulted in $16 billion in damage for one small town. So this is the story, uncomplicated. This planet right now faces an unprecedented crisis in terms of climate change. The fossil fuel industry has spent many millions of dollars lying to the American people about the dangers of climate change. They have funded organizations and think tanks which says, well, we're not sure about what the cause of climate change is. And that is horrific. That's an ugly thing to do because they know what the cause of climate change is. So we got a choice in front of us. I think we got three choices. Number one, we can live in Trump's fantasy world and think that climate change is not real. And if you do that, you endanger future generations. Number two, we can be moderate. And we can be responsible and just do a little bit. Well, when the planet is on fire, I don't think being moderate is what you have to do. Or we can basically listen to the scientists. And what the scientists are telling us is if, in fact, we want to save this planet, we have to act in a bold and aggressive way. And I know that makes people nervous, I really do. And I know that there is a concern, a legitimate concern, that when we move away from fossil fuel, there are people who lose their jobs. And that is why we have put billions of dollars, into a just transformation program, which tells those workers in the coal mines or on the oil rigs, they are not our enemy. Climate change is our enemy. And we have provided billions of dollars to make sure that those workers are not simply thrown out on the street, but will get decent jobs, decent income, have the health care they need, and the education they need, and the job training they need. We're not going to throw those workers out on the street. And because we know that while climate change impacts everybody, too often it will impact lower income people and people of color. What you saw in the Bahamas, for example, is the workers there, the poor people, their shacks were devastated by the hurricane. The wealthy people who had decent housing, good structures, were not so decimated. So we put billions of dollars in protecting the most vulnerable people in this country. All right, let me just conclude by saying this. Taking on the fossil fuel industry will not be easy. They are making billions in profit right now. They like the status quo. So what this campaign is about is really a campaign of transformation, of thinking big, not small, of having the courage to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of our planet. And to do that, I need your help. I need your help. But the stakes could not be higher. If the scientists are right, what we will be looking at is more and more Bahamas, more and more Puerto Ricos, more and more New Orleans, more and more Charleston, South Carolinas. And that's just going on all over the world. So let me conclude in the way I began. Real change in America never takes place from the top on down. It always takes place from the bottom on up when people by the millions are prepared to fight for justice, economic justice, racial justice, social justice, environmental justice. So I'm here to ask for your help to win in Nevada, and I think we got a great opportunity here. But more than that, I'm here to ask for your help to transform our economy and our government and create a system that works for all of us, not just the fossil fuel industry or Wall Street. Thank you all very much.